Ambassador stood at the viewing window of her shuttle and watched the ancient station grow larger against the dying star behind it. The sanctum of Accord was older than human civilization. It had floated in the Helix Nebula for 40,000 years, a meeting place for the most powerful species in the galaxy. Today, for the first time, a human would speak within its walls. Was 52 years old. She had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. She had learned 7 alien languages. She had studied the customs and histories of every council species. She had practiced her speech 1,000 times. Earth had chosen her because she believed, truly believed, that peace was possible. Her hands were steady as the shuttle docked. Her heart was calm. She carried no weapons, only gifts and words and hope. The council guards met her at the airlock. They were insect-like creatures with 4 arms and eyes that never blinked. They said nothing as they led her through corridors of black stone and pale light. The station smelled old, like dust and time and forgotten things. The chamber of voices was enormous. 17 thrones rose in a crescent shape, each one designed for a different species. Some were filled with water, others burned with fire. One seemed to be made of pure darkness, and in each throne sat a being that had ruled the stars while humans still lived in caves. Walk to the speaking circle in the center of the chamber. The floor beneath her feet was stained with something dark. She tried not to think about what had happened to others who had stood here. High Arbiter of the Dominion rose from his throne. His body was made of living crystal, blue and cold, with light pulsing through him like a heartbeat. He was beautiful and terrible, and when he spoke, his voice filled the chamber like breaking glass. The human ambassador may speak. Bowed low as she had practiced. High Arbiter, honored members of the Interstellar Council, I come before you as a representative of Earth and all her children among the stars. I come in peace. I come in friendship. I come with hope. She began her speech. She spoke of humanity's short history among the stars, only 200 years since they had discovered faster-than-light travel. She spoke of their mistakes, their wars, their struggles to overcome their violent nature. She did not hide their flaws. She admitted them freely. Then she spoke of their dreams, trade agreements that would benefit both sides, scientific cooperation, cultural exchange. Humanity wanted to learn from the elder species. They wanted to grow. They wanted to become worthy of a place among the stars. She offered gifts, art and music and literature from 1,000 human cultures, medical knowledge, agricultural techniques, everything humanity had to give. We do not ask for much, said. Only the chance to prove ourselves. Only the opportunity to show that we can be good neighbors. We will accept any conditions. We will follow any rules. We only ask that you give us time. She finished her speech and stood in silence, waiting. The council members looked at each other. Some whispered in languages did not know. Others simply stared at her with eyes that held no warmth. Finally rose again. The council has already deliberated, he said. Your presence here was a formality. The decision was made before you arrived. His heart began to beat faster. I do not understand, High Arbiter. Humanity has been studied for 117 of your years. Since the moment you left your home system, we have watched you. We have analyzed your history. We have examined your genetic code. The crystal being's light pulsed brighter. Our conclusion is unanimous. Humanity is a contamination species. The word hit like a physical blow. Contamination. Your species is aggressive beyond measure. You have fought more wars in your short history than most species fight in 1,000,000 years. You expand without thought. You consume without care. You are genetically programmed for violence. Stepped down from his throne and walked toward her. If allowed to spread, you will eventually threaten the stability of this galaxy. High Arbiter, please, we can change. We have changed. The wars of our past are behind us. We united our world, we. The sentence is containment. His blood turned to ice. Containment. You will be quarantined. A barrier will be placed around your star system. Any human vessel that attempts to leave will be destroyed. Your existing colonies will be allowed to wither. In 10 generations, perhaps 20, your species will have reduced itself to manageable numbers. You cannot do this. His voice was shaking now. We have done nothing wrong. We came here to talk, to negotiate, to find peace. There is nothing to negotiate. The decision is final. Stood tall, she would not beg, she would not cry. Then I will return to Earth and tell my people what you have decided. We will find another way. We will. No, raised his crystalline hand. You will not return. The guards moved before could react. They seized her arms and forced her to her knees. She struggled, but they were too strong. What is this? She demanded. I am a diplomatic envoy. I have protection under galactic law. Galactic law applies to civilized species. Looked down at her without pity. You are not civilized. You are animals, and you will serve as a message to your people. Understood then. They were going to kill her, not in secret, not quietly. They were going to execute her in front of the entire council, and they were going to broadcast it to Earth. She thought of her husband, her daughter, the home she would never see again. She thought of all the hopes she had carried into this chamber. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. The plasma beam was hot and bright and quick, died on her knees in the speaking circle of the sanctum of accord. Her blood joined the stains of all those who had been killed there before. Watched her body fall. Transmit the recording to there, he ordered. Let them see what happens to species that reach beyond their station. The council returned to their thrones. The matter was settled. The human problem would solve itself in time. They did not notice the way had died. They did not see the defiance in her eyes, even at the end. They did not understand what her death would mean. They had never studied human history. They did not know what humans did when their people were murdered. They were about to learn. The recording arrived on Earth at 3:47 in the morning, Geneva time. It was received by a young communications officer named David Park. He watched it once. Then he watched it again. Then he sat very still for a long time before he picked up the phone and called his superior. Within an hour, every world leader on Earth had seen die. Within 2 hours, every human being with access to a screen had seen it too. The reaction was not what the council expected. There was no panic. There was no chaos. There were no riots in the streets or mobs demanding surrender. Instead, something strange happened. Something the alien observers watching Earth did not understand. Humans became quiet. Factories that had been producing consumer goods shut down and retooled overnight. Workers who had been building homes and cars and entertainment systems began building something else. Shipyards that had been constructing colony vessels and cargo haulers cleared their docks and started new projects. No one ordered this. No government mandate was issued. No emergency powers were invoked. It simply happened across every continent, every colony, every outpost where humans lived. The Council's observation probes recorded everything, but understood nothing. Their industrial output has increased by 400%, reported Watcher X of the Architect Mines. They are consuming raw materials at an unprecedented rate. High Arbiter reviewed the data with mild interest. They are preparing defenses. It is a natural response. They will exhaust their resources building walls, and when the containment barrier is in place, they will realize the futility of resistance. Should we accelerate the quarantine? There is no need. Let them waste their energy. It will make the containment easier. The Council returned to other matters. The human situation was handled. There were more important things to discuss. But Watcher X was not satisfied. The Architect Minds had survived for 30,000 years by understanding patterns, and the pattern he was seeing did not match any in their records. He shared his concerns with Ambassador Aura of the Collective. She had argued against the execution. She had warned the Council that they did not understand humanity well enough to judge them. "They are not building walls," X told her. "They are building weapons." Ara's ghostly form flickered. "What kind of weapons?" "Unknown. The designs do not match anything in our databases. They appear to be using Council technology as a base, but the modifications are beyond our understanding." "How is that possible? They have only had access to our technology for 2 centuries." "I do not know, but there is something else." X paused. "They have recalled every ship, every colony vessel, every explorer, every cargo hauler. All of them have returned to human space. They are consolidating their forces." "No, they are transferring something, materials, components, things we cannot identify." The architect mind's sensors pulsed with confusion. "And they have stopped communicating, completely. No transmissions of any kind, not to us, not to each other, nothing." Ara understood then. She had studied humans more closely than any other Council member. She had read their history. She knew what silence meant. "We need to tell the Council," she said. "They will not listen." "They must. The humans are not building defenses. They are preparing an attack." But when Ara brought her concerns too, he dismissed them with a wave of his crystalline hand. "Attack with what? They have a fraction of our numbers. Their technology is primitive. Their species is barely out of infancy." He laughed, a sound like shattering ice. "Let them prepare. Let them dream of revenge. When they finally emerge from their silence, we will crush them like the insects they are." On Earth, the silence continued. In Geneva, the United Earth Parliament met in closed session. The debates were long and bitter. Some argued for surrender. Others demanded immediate retaliation. Most simply wanted to know what could be done against an enemy that ruled 10,000 worlds. On the 7th day, Admiral addressed the assembly. He was an old man, weathered by years of service. He had fought in the colonial conflicts when human fought human for resources and territory. He had believed those wars would be humanity's last. He had been wrong. "I knew," he said. "She was my student once. 40 years ago, she sat in my classroom and told me that humanity's future lay not in war but in peace, that we could be better than our history, that we could reach out to the stars and find friends instead of enemies." He paused and his eyes were hard. "She was right. We could have been better. We wanted to be better. We sent her to those alien bastards with open hands and open hearts, and they murdered her for it." The chamber was silent. "They think we are animals. They think we will cower. They think we will accept their judgment and wait quietly while they cage us like beasts." His voice grew louder. "They are wrong. We are not animals. We are not prey. We are humanity, and we remember our dead." He looked across the assembled representatives. "I am asking for authorization to do what needs to be done. Not defense, not negotiation. War, total war. The kind of war we hoped we would never have to fight again." The vote was unanimous. Admiral walked out of the Parliament building and looked up at the stars. He whispered, "I am sorry we failed you, but I promise you this. They will answer for what they did, every last one of them." The silence continued for 30 days. And then it ended. The first attack came without warning. Listening Post 7 was a small station on the edge of space. Its purpose was simple: watch the humans, report any movement. It had a crew of 12 and enough weapons to fight off pirates. Nothing more. At 600 Standard Time, the crew detected something emerging from fold space. Before they could identify it, Listening Post 7 ceased to exist. The weapon that destroyed it was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. It did not fire plasma or missiles or particle beams. It fired gravity itself, compressed into a point smaller than an atom. When it struck the station, reality folded in on itself. The station did not explode. It simply vanished, crushed into nothing by forces that should not have been possible. The Dominion received the distress signal 3 hours later. By then, 6 more stations had been destroyed. High Arbiter ordered the Third Fleet to intercept the attackers. 1,200 warships, the pride of the Dominion, veterans of 100 conflicts. They had never been defeated. Admiral was waiting for them. The human fleet was smaller, 300 ships, built in secret during the 30 days of silence. They looked crude compared to the elegant vessels. They were covered in strange devices that the sensors could not identify. Fleet Commander X opened a communication channel. "Human vessels, you are outnumbered 4-1. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." His response was simple: no. The battle lasted 17 minutes. The ships fired first. Their plasma cannons were powerful enough to crack planets. Their missiles could track targets across light years. Their shields had never been breached by any enemy. The human weapons went through those shields like they were not there. Phase disruptors, the humans called them. They did not try to overpower the shields. They simply made them stop existing. One moment a ship was protected. The next moment it was naked, vulnerable, alone. Then the gravity cannons fired. Ship after ship collapsed into nothing. The fleet scattered, trying to escape, but the humans were faster. They had studied Council technology for 30 days and found every weakness, every flaw, every gap in the ancient designs. Fleet Commander X died when his flagship folded in on itself. He was still screaming orders when the gravity wave hit. Of the 1,200 ships in the Third Fleet, 87 survived. They fled back to space with news of the disaster. Received the report in disbelief. Impossible. They are primitives. They cannot have developed such weapons in 30 days. High Arbiter, his advisor said carefully, perhaps we underestimated them. Underestimated? His crystal body flared with rage. They are animals. They are nothing. Send the Fourth Fleet, the Fifth Fleet. Send everything we have. Everything they had was not enough. The humans did not fight the way the Council expected. They did not meet the enemy fleet to fleet. They did not try to hold territory. Instead, they struck where no one expected. Ships appeared in the heart of industrial space, not military targets, factories, shipyards, mining stations, the places that built weapons and ships and supplies. The humans destroyed them all. Then they vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They are targeting our supply lines, Admiral X reported. They are not trying to defeat our fleets, they are trying to starve them. Within 2 months, the war machine was crippled. Ships sat in dock without fuel. Weapons went silent without ammunition. Soldiers waited for orders that never came because the communication networks had been destroyed. The other Council species watched in horror. The collective sent their ghost armada, ships that could phase through solid matter and strike from impossible angles. The humans had built sensors that could track them. The ghosts became targets. The Owl Swarm mobilized their living warships, creatures bred for war over. The humans had developed biological weapons that turned the ships against each other. The swarm devoured itself. The architect minds activated their ancient dreadnoughts, machines of war that had not moved in 10,000 years. The humans found their central processors and introduced code that made them think their own fleets were enemies. The dreadnoughts destroyed each other before a human ship ever reached them. One by one, the Council species fell. Not because the humans had more ships, not because they had better technology, but because they fought differently. They did not follow rules. They did not respect traditions. They did not stop to negotiate or accept surrenders or show mercy. They remembered dying on her knees. They fought with that memory burning in their hearts. Ambassador Ara watched the war from her ship at the edge of neutral space. She had withdrawn the collective from the fighting after the Ghost Armada was destroyed. She knew there was no point in continuing. They are not fighting for territory, she told her crew. They are not fighting for resources or power or dominance. Then what are they fighting for? Her second asked. Revenge. Ara's ghostly form dimmed with something like sorrow. We killed one of theirs, a diplomat, a peacemaker, and now they will make us answer for it. Can nothing stop them? Ara thought about everything she had learned about humanity, their history, their wars, their terrible, beautiful capacity for destruction. No, she said finally, nothing can stop them. The only question is whether any of us will survive. The war continued, and humanity advanced. The war lasted 3 years. By the end, the galaxy was transformed. 7 council species had surrendered unconditionally. They had given up their weapons, their fleets, their right to self-governance. They existed now only because humanity allowed them to exist. 4 others had been reduced to remnants. They were not destroyed. Admiral had been very specific about that. He did not want to commit genocide, but everything else was taken. Every orbital station, every military base, every symbol of their power. They were left alive but broken, shadows of what they had been. The remaining 6 council species had withdrawn to the far edges of the galaxy. They had sued for peace. They had offered everything they had. Refused to negotiate. Peace was what we offered 3 years ago, he told their envoys. Your masters killed the woman who brought that offer. There will be no peace until there is justice. The envoys asked what justice meant. Justice means the High Arbiter answers for his crime. Justice means the sanctum of accord falls. Justice means the galaxy understands that humanity will never again be treated as prey. The envoys returned to their masters with the message. None of them chose to stand in humanity's way. The human fleet moved toward the Helix Nebula, toward the dying star, toward the ancient station where had been murdered. High Arbiter waited for them. He had gathered what remained of the forces. It was not much. A few hundred ships, old and damaged, crewed by soldiers who knew they were going to die. The crystalline being had sent messages to every corner of the galaxy, begging for help. No one answered. They fear you, his advisor told him. They would rather watch us fall than risk your fate. Stood in the command center of the sanctum and watched the human fleet emerge from fold space. 3,000 ships now, every vessel humanity had built during 3 years of war. Then we die with honor, he said. Open fire. The battle was brief. Ships fell like leaves in a storm. Human weapons tore through shields and armor as if they were paper. Within an hour, the last defenders of the sanctum were gone. The station itself remained. Could have destroyed it. One shot from a gravity cannon would have erased 40,000 years of history. Some of his officers urged him to do it. Let the council see their precious sanctum vanish. Let them understand the price of murdering a human. Refused. We are not going to destroy it, he said. We are going to take it. 300 human Marines boarded the sanctum of Accord. They walked through corridors that had not seen violence in. They passed through chambers where the fate of civilizations had been decided. And they came to the Chamber of Voices. Stood alone in the center of the room. His guards had fled. His advisors had abandoned him. He was the last ruler of the Dominion, and he faced his enemies without fear. Admiral entered the chamber with his weapon holstered. He was 67 now, older than he had been when the war began. The years had worn him down, but his eyes were still sharp. The 2 leaders faced each other in the speaking circle. The floor was still stained with blood. So this is how it ends, said. His crystal body pulsed with dim light. The primitives triumph. The ancient powers fall. Chaos replaces order. This is how you chose to end it, replied. When you killed Ambassador, when you declared us contamination, when you decided our fate without asking us. We were protecting the galaxy from you. We had seen your kind before. Aggressive species always destroy themselves, but they damage everything around them first. We were trying to prevent that. By murdering a woman who came to you in peace. Said nothing. Stepped closer. You want to know something. You might have been right. Maybe we would have destroyed ourselves eventually. Maybe we would have torn the galaxy apart with our wars and our aggression and our endless hunger for more. He paused. But we were trying to be better, believed we could be better. She devoted her life to that belief. And yet here you are, proving us right. You have destroyed more in 3 years than any species in galactic history. Yes, his voice was heavy. We have, because you gave us no choice, because you decided that our lives were worth nothing, because you thought you could kill us without consequence. He drew his sidearm. Did not flinch. Will you execute me as I executed her? Will you broadcast my death to the galaxy as a message? Looked at the weapon in his hand. He thought about. He thought about the millions who had died in the war. He thought about all the rage and grief and hatred that had driven humanity to this moment. Then he holstered his weapon. No. Light flickered with confusion. No. If I kill you, I become you. If I execute you in this chamber in front of witnesses to send a message, then I am no different than you were 3 years ago, turned away. And I will not become you. Then what? You will let me live. Show mercy to the one who started this war. Mercy? Laughed, but there was no humor in it. No, not mercy. I am leaving you alive because that is the punishment you deserve. You will live knowing that everything you built is gone. You will live knowing that the species you called animals defeated you. You will live knowing that your own arrogance destroyed your people. He walked toward the door. The sanctum is ours now. Your dominion is finished. You are nothing but a memory. He stopped at the threshold and looked back one last time. Believed in peace. She believed in cooperation. She believed that different species could work together. I am going to honor her memory by building what she dreamed of, not through conquest, not through fear, through the principles she died for. Left the chamber. Stood alone in the darkness, surrounded by empty thrones, and understood at last what humanity truly was. They were not animals, they were not monsters, they were something far more dangerous. They were a species that remembered. 1 year after the fall of the sanctum, the Treaty of Saul was signed. Representatives from every surviving species gathered on Earth, not in a grand palace or an ancient station, but in a simple building in Geneva where humans had once met to discuss peace among themselves. The message was clear. The old ways were finished. Something new was beginning. Admiral stood before the assembly. He was tired. The war had taken everything from him, his health, his friends, his belief that violence could solve anything. But he had one task left to complete. The Interstellar Council is dissolved, he announced. The laws that allowed powerful species to judge weaker ones are abolished. The practice of containment, of execution, of treating younger civilizations as threats to be eliminated, ends today. The alien representatives listened in silence. Some were angry, some were afraid, some were simply exhausted like himself. In place of the council, we established the Galactic Accord, a governing body where every species holds equal standing, where disputes are resolved through discussion, not violence, where the strong protect the weak instead of destroying them. He paused and looked at the faces before him. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking that humanity has no right to impose this, that we won through war, through destruction, through all the violence we claim to reject. And you are correct. We have no moral authority to lecture anyone. A murmur went through the assembly. But we have the power to enforce this new order, and we choose to use that power not for conquest but for protection, not for domination but for equality. His voice grew softer. We do this because it is what would have wanted. We do this because the woman you murdered believed in something better than the galaxy you created. The treaty was signed by every species present, not because they believed in it, not because they trusted humanity, but because they had no choice. The old powers were broken. The human fleet controlled the void. Resistance was impossible. Over the following years, something unexpected happened. The Galactic Accord began to work. Species that had fought each other found themselves sitting at the same table. Problems that had once been solved with war were now solved with words. Trade flourished. Knowledge was shared. The galaxy, for the first time in its long history, began to heal. Admiral did not live to see most of this. He retired to a small house on Luna, overlooking Earth. He planted a garden in the gray soil and spent his final years growing things instead of destroying them. He died quietly in his sleep 7 years after the war ended. His last words were a name. The memorial was built on the site of the old sanctum of Accord. The station had been transformed into a museum, a reminder of what the galaxy had been and what it had become. In the center of the Chamber of Voices, where had died, a statue now stood. It showed her as she had been in her final moments, not begging, not afraid, standing tall, her hand extended in friendship, her eyes full of hope. The inscription read simply, "She offered peace. We ensured they would accept it." Ambassador Aura of the Collective came to the memorial every year on the anniversary of death. She had become humanity's closest ally among the elder species. She had argued against the execution when no one else would. She had withdrawn from the war when she understood that victory was impossible. Now she stood before the statue and remembered. A young approached her. He was a student, curious about the past, wondering why his species had changed so much in such a short time. "Ambassador, I do not understand. The humans were weaker than us, younger, less advanced. How did they defeat the entire council?" Aura considered the question. "They did not defeat us with strength, they defeated us with will." Will. The council had ruled for 40,000 years. We had become comfortable. We believed our power was permanent. We believed that younger species would always submit because they had no choice. She gestured at the statue. "We killed this woman because we thought it would frighten her people into obedience. But it did not. No, it united them. It gave them a cause worth fighting for, worth dying for." Aura's ghostly form flickered with something like admiration. "You see, most species in this galaxy evolved to survive, to endure, to outlast their enemies. Humans are different. Humans evolved to fight." "That sounds dangerous." "It is dangerous, extremely dangerous, but it is not the whole truth." She looked at the young with ancient eyes. "Humans also evolved to love, to protect, to remember. They do not fight because they enjoy destruction. They fight because they refuse to accept injustice. They will tear down the stars themselves before they allow their people to be harmed without answer." The young thought about this. Is that why we follow them now, because we fear them? At first, yes, we followed because we were afraid, but over time something changed. We began to see that the humans were not trying to dominate us. They were trying to build something better, something their ambassador had dreamed of. Aura smiled. And slowly we began to believe in that dream too. The memorial service ended, the visitors departed, the sanctum fell quiet again. But in the Chamber of Voices still stood with her hand extended. And above the entrance to the new Galactic Accord headquarters, built on the ruins of the old council chamber, a plaque hung with words that every species in the galaxy had learned to remember. "We came in peace. We will leave in peace, but never mistake our kindness for weakness or our patience for surrender. We are humanity, we remember our dead, and we do not forgive those who harm them." The galaxy was different now. Not perfect. It would never be perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, still moments when the old hatreds threatened to return. But something had changed. The strong no longer ruled simply because they were strong. The weak were no longer destroyed simply because they were weak. Every species had a voice. Every species had a choice. Had died for this dream. Humanity had made it real. And among the stars, her memory lived on forever.